Welcome, my name is Don Young, and today we're going to begin carving a vintage style songbird decoy. There will be three parts, three videos in this series, two for carving and one for painting. So let's get started. Well, songbird decoys, who knew there was such a thing? It's not like we're out shooting songbirds, are we? Well, in fact, songbird decoys have been used in scientific studies to attract the birds for study purposes. So they are being used, and we're going to be building an antique version. So this is our project. It's a Golden Winged Warbler, and they do come into the southeast corner of Manitoba. And like all warblers, they're often very hard to see. But nevertheless, we're going to carve and paint this little guy in an antique decoy style. So one of the considerations that you want to make when choosing a subject is what does this bird look like? How complex is it going to be to paint? So I like to choose a bird that is made up of fairly simple patterns or simple colors, you know, 3 or 4 main colors, and that helps a whole lot. So here you have a chickadee, a white-breasted nuthatch, a Kirtland's warbler, and a black and white warbler. Those should all be pretty good subjects, and that's why I chose the Golden Winged Warbler, which is basically gray, white, and yellow. So I often can't find patterns for the types of birds I would like to carve, so I have to make my own. One of the resources I use is the Sibley Bird Guide. In there you'll find beautiful profile drawings of all sorts of birds, and they are really great to blow up on your photocopier to the correct size. You do a little math and see what percent you have to increase their size, and get your profile view to the correct length. So a golden winged warbler is about 4 3/4 inches. So that's what you see on the right hand side. I've got a side view, and the top view of your pattern, you'll have to adapt that from maybe some other bird patterns that you have, and kind of, you know, shorten the tail or lengthen the wings, or change the bill shape a little bit to match the new pattern that you're making. So now that I have my pattern, you'll see I have it laid out on a piece of basswood, and I will cut that on the bandsaw as normal. And on the right hand side, you will see what I do next with my pattern that I've made out of some thin mylar, or could be a lid from a lettuce box, something like that has a bit of stiffness to it. And I'll use probes from my high school dissecting kit to poke some holes along the line of the wing, just to establish some positions of some of the parts. So here you'll see some of the lines that have been transferred from my pattern onto my carving blanks. And it's important to get the length of the wings there, get everything correct, so that you have your guidelines as you start carving. So here I go. I've got my knife going, and I'm starting to do a little rounding off. Be careful on the left-hand side there that you don't chop away those long primary feathers, the longest wing feathers. So just be careful when you're approaching those. It is a good idea to, as you can see on the right-hand side, is to do some stop cuts straight down around those wing tips. You'll want a little bump so that the wing tips stand up above the tail. And then I've taken some of the top of the tail away a little bit, so those primaries feathers, those wing tips, are raised up. In our next photographs here, you'll see that I am working a little bit on the wing tips, the primary feathers. Those primary feathers, when they lay along the back of a bird, they don't sit in a real rounded shape. They're rather flat. They're very stiff feathers, so they don't really cup themselves as they're sitting on top there. So you're going to want to make a bit of a flat surface, starting right about where my knife is there. On the right hand photo, you'll see I've started carving down around the edges of the head, following those lines from my pattern. So I'm starting to establish the width of the bird's head, and I've done a little other little bits of rounding off, as you can see. So now I'm doing a little checking. Um, get your pattern, make sure your pattern is close at hand so that you can look at it from time to time and make sure you haven't made some terrible mistakes, because now would be a good time to start over rather than when you're much further along. So look at your profile. Your bandsaw has probably cut it out a little larger than your pattern, so you might want to start adjusting the profile shape of your bird to match your pattern. And here I've started working a little bit around the front of his head there towards the bill. So as you can see in well, both pictures here, there's quite a flat area that goes along the side of the head that approaches right to the end of where the bill meets the head. There isn't a big bump there that changes from the head to the bill. It's rather a flat, smooth surface. So make sure you do that. And next we'll do some work on the bill. So the bill on a songbird, when you look straight on, is a bit of a pentagon shape. So it meets at the top surface on my center line there that you can see. That's the high point. So there's two slopes that go down each side of of the center point um, in a bit of a V, and then there's on each side there's another smaller surface, and then the underneath of the bill makes up for the fifth type of fifth surface. So you're getting a sort of a pentagon there. On the right hand diagram, you'll see the blue surface, or the surface that I've got painted blue there. That's the sort of the top slope of the pentagon on this side. Just a couple more views showing how I've narrowed the bill a little bit. The bandsaw cuts it out pretty wide, so you want to make a nice delicate little warbler bill. Warblers feed on insects. They don't have a great big thick bill. They have a rather delicate one for poking into little crevices and grabbing little worms and little insects. Another view of the front face on of the warbler with his beak, and yet another one from above. So you just need to sneak up on those delicate things. Just keep working away a little bit. Pinch the head in a little bit so you have a little crown going there, and it just gets more bird-like. Look at your references, see what a bird looks like. So here I've started working on the wing. I want the wings to stand out from the body a little bit to help give the bird some character. So I've followed all along the underneath edge that I drew off of my pattern with a 1/4 inch gouge. So that's quite a deep pathway that I made. I think you would agree. But you're going to need that. So this gouge goes all along here, as you can see, and right up over the tail and matches up with that with the ends of your wingtips there. So be careful there with your pushing with your gouge that you don't want to see bandages in the next slide.